Hello, this is Michael Goldsmith. Welcome to 100 Coaches Show. We're going to have a wonderful show today with two incredibly brilliant women talking about something that's important to all of us: technology, leadership, the new world, and especially issues revolving women. Let me briefly introduce myself, and we're going to introduce my friend Sun Yen, and then we'll get the show rolling. Oh, my name is Marshall. I'm from Kentucky, went to school in Indiana, got a PhD at UCLA. I was a college professor and dean when I was young, and then for 43 years, I've done three things: traveling about the world, speaking and teaching. I love teaching executives. That's the fun part of my job. Been to 102 countries with 11 million frequent flyer miles. I write and edit books and articles. So I've written or edited 42 books. I've written 6 bestsellers, and the other 36 purchased by my mother, my father, and relatives. So I've written a bunch of books, sold a bunch of books, and then I coach executives. I've been the coach of the CEO of Ford and Pfizer and Glaxo, and right now I'm working on an amazing project called LPR 50, where I'm working with a group coaching process with 50 of the top leaders from around the world. It's just been so much fun. And we're here today, and I'm here with my wonderful friend and colleague, Sun Yen Cheng. Sun Yen is a wonderful human being, just a great person. Along with that, she's she was ranked one of the #1 most influential coach in the world in Thinkers 50. She is at Duke. She's just a wonderful person. Sun Yen, introduce yourself for 1 second, and then we'll introduce our lovely guests.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Sun Yen Cheng, and as the world's #1 executive coach, I work with leaders and their companies to help them reimagine the future and build stronger teams so that they can be resilient throughout uncertainty and beyond. I work with CEOs, board directors, sports industry executives, and also students because I'm a mom. No, I'm a mom, but I work with students because I'm also the executive director of the Coach K Leadership and Ethics Center at Duke University's Buchel School of Business. And today on the show, we have 2 wonderful leaders in technology. So I'm going to introduce Claire, and then Marshall's going to introduce Tiffani. So Claire Diaz-Ortiz is one of the most brilliant people you'll ever meet, and she's also a dear friend. Claire was one of the early executives at Twitter, and she's also the person known as the one who got the Pope to use Twitter. So thank you so much, Claire, for that. She's also a best-selling author from the book Hope Runs, as well as her latest book, Social Media Success for Every Brand. And she is also a highly sought-after tech investor. Back to you, Marshall.
Well, to start with, Tiffani and Sun Yen, we should all hate Claire. Here's why. I was just in the little FedEx office store, and they only have like 20 books in the whole damn store, and her book was prominently featured. I didn't see my damn book, Sun Yen, or your book, or Tiffany's book. So Claire, we all hate you. So anyway, getting started.
I'm sure that's
Tiffani Bova.
Right now, the entire state of California.
Tiffani is a wonderful person. She's been featured at Thinkers 50 as one of the most innovative, creative, and greatest thinkers in the world. She's the author of a Wall Street Journal best-selling book, Growth IQ. She's ranked as one of the top powerful women in California. And aside from that, just a lot of fun and a good human being. So Tiffani, thank you for joining us. Sun Yen, why don't you get the ball rolling? What's a good question?
All right. So today's topic, technology and leadership. So what is it about leading in technology companies that is different than leading in more traditional companies? Tiffani, let's start with you because you are also the chief evangelist at Salesforce.
Well, first, let me start by saying thank you for having me here today. And I'm okay with Claire's book being at FedEx. I'm okay with that. I think as long as we keep it in the family, that's good. So go, Claire.
Okay. All right.
All right. But to answer the question, here's what I would say is that I think that all companies, but technology companies in particular, have absolutely the responsibility to think about how and where the technology is going to be used. You know, this democratization of access to technology, making sure people have the ability to use it safely, and use it in a secure way is really important. And so, I think that from a technology standpoint, we, at Salesforce, we have somebody who is the chief ethical use of technology officer for the company to make sure that we're always setting ourselves up for people who will use our technology that have disabilities. We also make sure that we are giving back technology to those in the nonprofit world. So I think that there's a lot of responsibility around trust and equality, as well as just really equality on using of the technology. So from a really high level, for me, that's what I think it's about. It's about how do we make the world a better place and our greater communities. That's what's important to me.
What do you think, Claire? Same question.
I think that we look to technology to do things that we do not necessarily look to other companies to do. And some of that can be good and some of that can be bad, right? So I was an early employee at Twitter, and in the early days, my job was basically trying to figure out how Twitter back in 2008, 2009 could be used to make a positive difference in the world, right? Because we felt that technology, and particularly social media, could do that, right? Things have changed. We have different views about social media these days, and if social media is really a positive or potentially a negative thing. But I think overwhelmingly what I'm aware of these days is that we, in this state of global crisis, are looking to technology companies to serve as sort of leaders and guideposts for how other companies should be treating this sort of hellscape of a year we're in the midst of. And I think it means that it's more important than ever for technology companies to do the right thing and to be on the forefront of innovation and disruption. But I must confess that it does worry me that these technology companies are getting kind of the brunt of the responsibility for making the right decisions. I think that's a really tough position to put these companies in, especially given what we've seen in the last few years with a lot of tech companies being run by really young folks who may not necessarily have the wisdom to lead.
Yeah, very good. Tiffani. One phrase you just used when we were talking earlier, I really loved, rather than get back to normal or get back to the new normal, which I never liked those phrases either. I don't know why. I like your phrase much better. The next future. I love that. The next future.
Yeah.
Now, what do you mean by the next future?
Well, when we first went into lockdown, I'm in Southern California as well, in Los Angeles. And when we first went into the lockdown, it was sort of this phased, everything was shutting, some things were still open, we weren't sure what was happening. Then when we really shut down and everything was closed up, I was driving by a Starbucks, which was closed, but the parking lot was completely full. And I was confused. I'm like, well, maybe they're doing like takeout or something. So I drove by, and lo and behold, I looked in the cars, and there were sometimes 3, 4, 5 people in the car, everyone with laptops open or iPads and iPhones, and they were getting Wi-Fi from Starbucks. And in my mind, I thought, this is really an opportunity to think about, back to your previous question, is the role technology is playing now in what our future will look like. And I felt like the normal we left was not equal. And going back to what I said earlier about technology and democratization of it, and making sure that if people are going to be educated remotely, well, they have to have access to notebooks or desktops or iPads or Wi-Fi if they're going to get healthcare remotely. And so for me, it was like, what is the next future we can build, learning what we know from the past, what we can learn from this current point in time, because this is just a point in time, and how do we then make it better? And the CEO of Salesforce always says this, that business is the greatest platform for change. And so how can we take this opportunity in front of us while challenging for many, so that when we come out of it, the next future is bigger, stronger, better for as many people as we can on a global basis. That's what gets me excited about what we're in the middle of right now, is what will people imagine for the future?
So can we connect the dots? Yeah, so I wanted to connect the dots between Claire's previous answer, which is about how leaders in technology can be a part of that moving forward, right? It's not only taking on technology as the brunt, of the solution, but being able to bring others along so that there's shared ownership in creating that next future. So, and what Tiffani is saying about democratization of access. So what do tech leaders have to think about so that they can, create that next opportunity and truly leverage, as Tiffani says, business as a platform for societal change?
So I'd love to jump in here. I mean, something that really stands out to me from what Tiffani's talking about is something that I've seen a lot as a startup investor over the last year. Just to give some basic stats. So when you think of venture capital funding, 98% of VC funding goes to male founders, right? And I don't think anyone on this call or anyone watching this call would think that, 98% of innovation is coming from male founders, right? So clearly there's a problem in terms of who we're investing in. And the problem, I believe, comes from the investors. And it turns out when we look at the stats that a male investor is actually 3x less likely to invest in a female founder than a female investor is. So to make that simpler, a female investor will invest in a female founder 3 times more often as a male investor, right? So you look at these stats and you combine them with the fact that, now there are dozens of studies showing that when you have a female founder on a founding team or even a female executive in the C-suite, your company is likely to have greater revenue, greater profits, exit sooner and exit at a greater valuation. It really indicates to us, okay, we need to be investing in female founders right now. And I would say, there's some interesting data coming out also showing that, a lot of venture capitalists and investors right now are saying, hey, the world is crazy. We're in this nuts recession. What are we going to do as investors? We're going to shrink back into our existing networks. And of course, that means to invest in the people they already know. And if you're in a world where 90% of venture capitalists who have the ability to write a check are guys, the people they already know are often other dude bro founders, right? So we've clearly got a problem here. And we need to make sure that even in the midst of this crisis, we are investing in female founders. I think one interesting example of this is there's kind of this argument right now going on Twitter that I've been following very, very closely. If you can't tell, I've got these lights behind me because I'm in my 6-year-old's room. This is now my office during the pandemic because my actual office is a nightmare with the 3 little kids. They've just completely co-opted it. So this is my new office. So I was following on Twitter last week this argument where, some VCs, some investors are saying, the future that we're going to see is really going to be different in terms of ed tech, in terms of educational technology, because it turns out that we're really going to be doing much more education from home, probably not just in the next 9 months, but for many years to come. And, it's a great point, it's a valid point, but the challenge here, of course, that a lot of female founders started to talk about on Twitter was, hey, these innovations probably have to come from female founders because 99% of the people doing homeschooling in this pandemic are women, right? 99% of the people doing homeschooling are women. 47% of the workforce in the US these days are women, and 75% of women are mothers. So you've got this thing where, hey, it's great to talk about how the future of ed tech is schooling out of our homes, but that's really going to impact women significantly more. So that's really who we need to be looking at for innovation. And just, and this is one example of many, essentially. But I think that we are at this critical point.
Well, and I think one of the things that... Go ahead, Marshall.
Go ahead. You go ahead, and then I'll make my point after you do yours.
Okay. Yeah, and there was a stat a couple of years ago, and I wish I could remember who said it, but it was a male VC, and he literally said, I have noticed, and he found a study that male VCs that have daughters are more likely to invest in female founders, that they understand the power of that. And I've never been able to find the stat. So Claire, if you can find that stat, right on, right? Because I haven't been able to find it. But when you think about why that's important, I hear this often and I get a lot of pushback. Well, it's, women on a board or women founders or, minorities or what it is. It's really, for me, it's about sort of diversity of thought and diversity of experience. And if you are a company who is going to, your customer that you're trying to attract to whatever it is you're selling is female, which I'm guessing is probably part of the case because they're decision makers in so much of what goes on in the home and also sometimes in business. And if they're in the executive suite, obviously more. But then same thing on minorities, that if your customer looks a certain way, you want to have that representation internally. So if you're going to invest in ed tech, to go to Claire's example, maybe you put teachers on the design committee, or you get them in the original conversation, or you put them on the board, or you put them in the investment fund. You do something where you connect to who it is you're trying to attract, and making sure you have that representation during the process of designing, developing, deploying, whatever it is you're selling. And I think that's where people miss why it's so powerful, is because you're much more in tune with who the buyer is, who the ultimate customer is, and then you have more empathy for who it is you're designing for. I think that's, for me, why I think it's so important.
Well, you know what, Sonia, time for a little bragging now. Speaking of a woman and a minority, and she is from Africa, and she is a CEO, one of our 100 coaches, who I love, Aisha Evans, just sold her company Zoox to Amazon for $1.2 million. Let's hear it for Aisha. She's going to be taking names and picking. She's going to be taking names.
Yeah, it was
$1.2 billion, not billion. I'm sorry, $1.2 billion. And Aisha is just going to be taking names and kicking butt out there, and we love her. So she is a wonderful role model of woman, engineer, not African-American, African, and is one of our 100 coaches who I love, and she's just had a wonderful, wonderful success. Now let's have some challenge here. Enough talking about them. Let's talk about this character, Claire and Tiffani. All right, it's easy, blah, blah, blah. Let's talk about women in leadership and all that. Them. Okay, let's start with Tiffani. What are you going to do to make this happen, other than talk about them and what they need to do?
Well, I am blessed and fortunate that I get the opportunity to work at a company that talks about equality and trust and values all the time. And when I was, prior to joining Salesforce, I was a research fellow at Gartner for a decade, one of the world's largest analyst and consulting companies for tech specifically. So when it was time for me to decide what I wanted to do next, it was like, where do I want to go? I knew I wanted to stay in tech, but I wanted something very different. And it was an easy decision for me because I had attended 9 or 10 Dreamforce conferences as a non-employee. And it was the only time, for those of you who don't know what it is, Dreamforce is a big event that Salesforce has in San Francisco every year. And last year, I think we had close to 160 or 170,000 people live in San Francisco. This year, we're not doing it live, but it is a gathering of an amazing community that we've been able to build over the last 20 years. And when I left that conference, I always felt like I wanted to be a better human being. It wasn't about tell me more about technology. And so the answer to your question, Marshall, is, I have been blessed to have this chance to meet with companies and executives and have this conversation a lot. Like, what are you doing? What's happening? We share through a series we have, Leading Through Change, where we showcase executives of our customers' companies on what they're doing on these topics. So we try to amplify the fact that this is not our story, that this is our collective story as a community, as a globe. And that's what I get excited about. Is it's really interesting. I feel like I learn every day. I mean, even everything we're going through now, it's humbling to think that, I am a 54-year-old woman, work for one of the Fortune 500 companies. I talk around the world. I don't have as many miles as you do, Marshall, but same airline. And I would tell you that all the things I did not know about Black history until all this happened. And so for me, it's like, I'm all about learning every day, trying to push forward and figure out how can the things I now know and understand because of everything we're going through, how can I make a difference? And it could be one conversation, could be a webinar, could be a podcast, but it's about learning, consuming, and then figuring out what's the best way for me to share that content out, and also work and collaborate with lots of people that I aspire to be. I truly believe I stand on the shoulders of giants. So, what are the things that I can do each day? So that's how I approach it, is like, what can I do? What can I own? What can I do? in my
Very
little,
good, very good.
24 hours every day.
Sonia, a
That's
little applause here, Sonia. Okay, how about you, Claire? Claire, what are you going to do other than just yammer on about other people? What are you going to be doing?
Well, I'm actually just about to launch the first venture capital fund for female founders in Spanish-speaking Latin America. I guess we're launching next week or in 2 weeks, and it's been a project that we've been working on for about a year now with another of the top seed funds down here in LATAM. And I spent about a year kind of doing all the research and figuring out what some of the issues were when it came to the underfunded female founders in Latin America and also the female Latinx founders in the US. And so really excited about that. I think it's really, really the time to do that. And one of the projects we're also looking at, because this is an issue that is of extreme importance to me, is looking at the issue of the Black Latinx founders also in Latin America. So one of the research projects we're looking into is trying to understand a map of what percentage of our VC dollars every year in Latin America is actually going into this demographic, because it's a terrible number. And I do believe that the first kind of step in all of this change is often understanding where you really are.
Yay. Tiffani, a little support for her. Applaud.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, now for all of you, like I love all this altruism crap, but now let's get down to what's really important. Me. Now, one of my buddies, Kevin left Disney, and now he's number 2 at ByteDance, and he's also CEO of TikTok. Now, Tiffani and Claire, I know you may not be quite as hip as I am, but do you know what TikTok is?
Mm-hmm.
TikTok.
I'm on TikTok.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
I'm on
That's
TikTok.
good. I just want to make sure. I know, and
Okay.
most people are not hip and cool like me, so I just want to make sure you're on the same page. I was a little worried, but that's good. Good to know. Now, I want to put together, I talked to Kevin about this already. I'll get some consulting on the air live as we speak from both of you technology experts. TikTok, as you know, is a lot of kiddie stuff right now. But Kevin wants to expand this and make it, putting together maybe executive education using the same 1-minute video format for lots of people as an educational tool, which I'm going to work on. I love this stuff. And I need a couple of consultants to help me. Sanyin, do you think Claire and Tiffani might be experts on this topic? Okay,
I
this
think
is it.
so. I think we need to do a TikTok video right now, 1 minute.
Love it.
Yes,
Make it happen.
Let's make it up.
Okay, we're going to do 1-minute videos that related to education that are really fun and interesting and help people. And all right, now you've got a couple of minutes to give me an idea. First, Tiffani, give me some coaching here. This is my chance. Give me an idea.
Oh my goodness. Well, so I know that they launched TikTok for Business. So I'm guessing that it's going to be there. Is that right? Is that where they're thinking? That they're thinking sort of TikTok for Business? Yeah. Yeah. I would say that sometimes, and we talked about this in our pre-show, like make it fun, have fun. Don't be so serious. Don't be so buttoned up, when it comes to leadership and business and management. Right. And so how do we make the topics more accessible without using the management speak, to get more potentially young people, right, interested in the career progression that they're not today? So how do we make education about big topics that are reserved for 300-page, very serious books? And how do we make it digestible, in a minute and have some fun with it? I think if we got, 25 or 30 very, very, buttoned up thinkers to have some fun on TikTok, I think it would be a hoot. So I'm all in.
Yay! Hooray. And Tiffani, I'm going to have to work on this myself because I often receive feedback that I'm a little too buttoned up. And so I'm going to try to lighten up a little bit for this effort and get out of my shell. I know it's going to be tough for me, but I'm going to work on it. That's very good. Thank you for that good idea. Claire, what's your good idea?
Well, so first of all, I must say in my latest book, which was on social media, I profiled this really smart guy named Goldsmith. And he told me that last year in 2019, one of his best performing posts on LinkedIn was actually a personal post where he just posted a picture of him at Thanksgiving, right? And that's because he's usually posting a lot of professional stuff. And so going out there and doing what Tiffani says of being kind of personal was really resonating. So I would 100% agree with that idea. And I would also offer another idea, which is similar to what Marshall and Sonia are doing with LinkedIn Live. TikTok, your 1-minute TikTok videos are really going to benefit from bringing in other leaders as much as you can, because the power of multiple networks is always better than the power of one.
That's right.
Well, that is, yay, very good. Yeah, and Sonia, I would like to bring in some other leaders, yet I've been listening to this talk, and perhaps some other fine women leaders might be important to bring in too. Would you agree with me?
I think that's.
Do we know any? And do we know any fine women leaders in technology that we can recruit for this journey? Any volunteers out there, perhaps?
I have to say that I never knew one of my bucket list items was to do a TikTok with Marshall. I never knew it. I didn't know it until right now.
There you go.
My bucket list is a TikTok with Marshall. I didn't know that. I did not know that.
This is all good. All good. I love this idea. Now, Sonia, what's your idea? Give me one suggestion on being a big technology. This talk is about technology and leadership. This is the reality of a real project. Give me your idea.
I think this idea of with the audience, the audience is the hero of every engagement. The client is a hero of every coaching engagement. The reader is a hero of every book. The reader, the audience for every social media is a hero of every post. And so to connect with the audience, we have to relate. So if it's a younger audience, then we have to think about our younger selves. So what about thinking about reflections about what we learned from our past? Something like advice we'll give our 16-year-old self as a way of connecting and being uplifted.
That's good. Okay, a wonderful conversation here on topics of technology, leadership, and most important, giving advice to me. So very good conversation. Now we're going to finish with one final reflection. A final reflection from you. Sonia, what did you learn from our two fine guests that you'd like to share? Is going to have an impact on what you do?
So what Tiffani said about business as a platform for societal change, if we take that, technology has been the biggest catalyst for disruption in business over the past few years. But in order for us to really leverage that platform for societal change, it has to start with us individuals, not them, it's us. And the biggest way for it to start with us is to continuously learn, be ferociously curious, and learn and engage others into being part of the solution, but it has to start with us. So that's my
very good reflection. And Sonia, when do we need to get started on this?
Like now.
In the words of a famous song, don't wait, don't hesitate, let's move before they raise the parking rate.
See? TikTok. Exactly. You were born for TikTok.
So Tiffani, what's one of your reflections?
I might need to rescind my aspiration to do TikTok with you, because you are completely going to show me up. I know it already.
So what's one of your reflections about our conversation, just listening to everybody talk?
Oh, I would say from Claire, like just the whole conversation around thinking broader than the US, and, what are the things that we can do on a global basis. We all the four of us, I'm guessing, get to travel around the world. And so we see things from a very collective and fabric of perspective. So I love that I've seen movement and progress in the US around female founders and female VCs and a lot of effort. But that's the first time, and I've heard it in Australia, I've heard it in New Zealand, heard a little bit in London, but this is the first time I've heard it from a Latin America standpoint. So I'm super excited to follow the progress of the effort that Claire is doing. So that was great.
Yay, yay for Claire. Yay. So Claire, what's one reflection for you?
My reflection is to, always be innovating, especially in a pandemic. I think, Marsha's on TikTok, Tiffany's on TikTok. I got to get on TikTok. Yeah, we gotta do the new things.
And Claire, I feel it's my duty to kind of pull you into the new world now. So I'll do my best to help you in this dimension.
Claire, I'm on
So in
to be
closing,
really clear, I'm on TikTok, but no video yet. I'm on TikTok, but no video yet. So I'm there.
You're lurking.
I haven't been inspired for the 1 minute craziness yet, but I've been waiting. So I can't wait.
You know what?
Marshall. And so there's your inspiration.
Oh, I have videos. I have videos, so I am already there. And look, final thing I'd like to say is I am proud to know both of you. You're wonderful people, so smart, and trying to help make the world better and ahead of the curve on technology. So thank you so much for joining us. Sonia, final comment to our two wonderful guests.
Just thank you. You inspire us, and keep on doing what you've been doing. You're amazing.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Yay. Thank you so much. Yay.